It's season 2 of the Lessons from Sports podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Wayne Partello. The summer got busy and decided to put a pause on recording more episodes as Quento is in full steam on a bunch of major projects going on. And now we are back into the recording season. And I'm really excited for episode 1 of season 2. I sat down with a good buddy of mine named Jason Miller. Jason and I were working at competitive radio stations in Boston, both in the sports radio kind of world. And he'll tell the full story of how we got connected and the relationships that brought Jason to meet all of us as we were heading to Miami to go work for the Dolphins. But where Jason has gone in his career is just an incredible ride, and showing the determination and just drive that he has always had and the ability to sell. He embraced his skills from day one and knew exactly what he was capable of. He committed to himself, he bet on himself, and the rest is history. I'm super excited. I love being able to bring these amazing people to you and to the audience. So thank you so much for tuning in, and hope you enjoy this conversation with me and my friend Jason Miller. All right. Well, this guy, man, we've been friends for, at this point, probably 15 years. It was an afternoon in Newton trying to convince you to leave a radio station and come work for the Miami Dolphins. Can't even believe we had to have that conversation. But my man, Jason Miller, thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here, Wayno. Yeah, I think the cherry tree, what was that?
What's the cherry tree? That was like our neighborhood haunt in Newton when we lived there.
Oh man, those good times. That was, that will be 15 years ago in the spring that we all made our way down to Miami, which is just totally hard to believe.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you and I both started on the radio side, but we were at competing stations. We didn't know each other. So for everybody here, why don't you take us through kind of your career and all the amazing things you get to do now, which just crack me up every time I see you post them on LinkedIn. I'm like, Miller just did what? That's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, thanks. So I grew up pretty close to you, Franklin, Mass. So right down the road from the Patriots, and headed down to the Philadelphia area where ironically I live now, and went to high school there and then started college at West Virginia University. I saw Jerry Maguire when I was in high school, and I thought, wow, that's a really cool job that this guy has. And so I wanted to be a sports agent. And what I was told was, to be a sports agent, you have to go to law school, but first you got to go and you got to get a degree. And so went to West Virginia University for a couple of reasons. The main reason being, one, I wanted kind of a big, fun school. I wanted Division I athletics. I wanted rugby. I actually was a pretty competitive rugby player in high school.
Really? I didn't know that.
All-state captain of my rugby team in high school, and then went to West Virginia, played as a freshman, got hurt, and then ultimately that was gone. But 2-3 years in, I start studying for the LSAT. I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to sit in a library for 3 years straight and study and get this law degree. So figured I got to get an internship. I'm going into my senior year. And my mom, who to this day still loves talking about me and bragging about me, I can do anything. I'm the greatest person ever. Actually was seated on a plane next to a woman that owned a small sports marketing firm in Philadelphia called AYS Sports Marketing, Judy Lerner, who used to represent Andy Roddick and all these big tennis players. And she said, "Hey, I need an intern. Your son sounds great." And so my mom actually got me my first internship on a plane ride, I think flying from Cincinnati, where they were looking to live, where they actually live now. They live outside Cincinnati. And so I took this job with AYS Sports Marketing. And at this point, I have no idea what I want to do. I'm in there. I'm in this internship. And they're like, "Hey, we have this Justice for All Celebrity Golf Classic with the Eagles. We do a goodie bag. Like, can you just try to figure out how we can make it good?" And I just started cold calling Etonic and FootJoy and Callaway. And I ended up filling this bag with all this shit. And the guy who ran the company after was like, "Where did we get all this? Where do we have a budget?" I was like, "I negotiated trades. Oh, by the way, this has." So net, I figured, wow, I'm pretty good at calling people and getting them to do things. And so as I was graduating school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I still lived in the Philadelphia area. I saw a job at East Stroudsburg University, Division II school up in Northeast Pennsylvania near the Poconos, near
Yeah.
Allentown. And they hired me as their director of sponsorship right out of college, which shows you how much they really valued sponsorship at the university. I mean, I did a $4,000 deal where you got to sign at the football stadium. And by the way, they made the Final Four that year in football, and they had the Harlan Hill Trophy winner, so they were like legit.
Yeah.
And a sign in the basketball arena for $4,000. You would have thought I closed a $50 million deal, and they were carrying me around campus on a chair. Like it was this, I was like writing how to sell program ads. Like it was just 10 months in. I'm in my mid-20s, early 20s. The hot spots, the Dansbury Depot in town where you can get poppy seed muffins. I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I started looking on Teamwork Online. Okay. I see a job with the Patriots and Boston Bruins radio network, which at the time was on WBCN.
Okay.
Before they flipped to 98.5 The Sports Up to compete with your old station, WEEI.
R.I.P.
Exactly. R.I.P. Still can't believe that, by the way.
Crazy.
We
can talk about that for hours, but go ahead.
Talk about a plane going down. But so anyway, I see this job and it's like you need 4 years of experience in sales and all this experience that I don't have. So I came up with this concept, and I'll never forget it. I went actually to the East Stroudsburg Walmart, and I went into a Monopoly box, opened up the Monopoly box, and I took the $100 bills out of it. And then I went and got a green stack of paper, went to the copy machine, taped and then I made stacks of $100 bills, just a box full of them, crinkled them up like the peanuts in a box.
Yeah.
Taped my cover letter and resume to the bottom of this big box and wrote this. I don't have this cover letter, and it's one of the things that really bothers me. At the bottom of this aggressive cover letter, right? I'm like this sales guru. I wrote, if you want to turn this fake money into real money for the Patriots radio network, you better call me for an interview. So I sent this box on a Friday afternoon. I got a call on a Monday from a guy named Mark Winship, who ran the Patriots radio network. Hey, is this Jason Miller? Like, yeah, he's like, I got you a box of money here. You want to come up and interview? So I was like, sure. So I sent the box on a Friday. I got that call on, I think, Monday or Tuesday. I drove up, interviewed that following Friday, 1 week later, and got the job, offered on the spot. I was like dancing in the hallway.
Wow.
Making $10,000 more than I was making in East Stroudsburg. So I thought I hit the lottery.
Yep.
And 3 weeks exactly from sending that box of money, I was up back in Boston, living in Watertown, Massachusetts, working for the team radio broadcast that I grew up with. So I thought it was the greatest. I mean, it was so exciting. And I'll just tell you, I was a prolific seller for the Patriot Radio Network. I identified pharmaceuticals as something that was totally untapped. I would go and I would get the Boston Globe. Literally, I would get the hard paper.
What year was this, Ryan? Jason?
This was 2006.
Okay, yeah. So the newspaper was still like rich with opportunity for clients. Like,
oh my God, we were still calling people.
Yeah,
like you still picked up and used your office phone, which, I mean, halfway through my time at the Dolphins, that started to end.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would get the Globe and I would look in the money section, and there would be in the stock section the 5 biggest movers and the 5 biggest like gainers, 5 biggest losers. And I would look and I would call those companies, the ones that were gaining. Hey, I heard you had a great week. Mm-hmm. And I started to notice all these pharmaceutical lifetimes, medical device companies in Cambridge and the surrounding area that were just killing it. And so I started just picking off deals. I mean, it almost became a little bit of a joke, like the Cause Marketing Radio Network, because we were intercepting Parkinson's, we were tackling cancer, we were rushing towards a cure. Like it almost like got to be a joke in the broadcast, but it was actually a little bit ahead of its time in terms of the cause marketing that we were doing, and just had a great run. But 4 years in, we've both worked in the radio business. Some people are really, really happy and have great long careers. I knew pretty quickly that Not only was radio really not for me long term, but I was kind of sick of Boston and the snow and all of that. And so this is one of the most ironic kind of things that ever happened to me. So I literally start looking at warm weather markets and I'm like, who do I know? Who can I get to? And I noticed that this guy from WEEI had just gone down to the Dolphins to be SVP of corporate partnerships and integrated media. It was Rushton, who I obviously both owe a lot to,
sure.
our commander down in and so I noticed and I wrote, wow, like, so I wrote the main phone number for the Dolphins, whatever it was,
Yeah.
I can't remember. And Jim Rushton. I put it on a Post-it and I put it in my pocket. And then I went on a road call to go to like some auto dealership in Quincy with one of the old sellers at the radio network. I was selling sports. He was selling whatever. And we're driving and I'm like, it's like snowing. Like, you know how in Boston they use like the coal, like it's just black and it looks just like shit and miserable. So we're driving over 93 and I look at him, I'm like, is this it? Like we're just gonna freeze and it looks crappy out. And I'm like, I need to get to a warm weather team or league or something like that. And he goes, you know where you should call? Jim Rushton. And I pull the piece of paper out of my pocket and I go, dude, like, how weird is that?
Wow. Who was the seller?
I want to say it was like this guy, Bob. Oh, God, what is his name? I don't know, like total old school dude.
Yeah, that's so funny. That's amazing.
I mean, the chances of it just felt so meant to be, I got Rushton's name in my pocket, anyway, long story short, I cold called the Dolphin Stadium, and you know how hard it is to get a hold of Rush on his cell phone, let alone get him through the main line on the Dolphin Stadium. And I get him, like first call, like he's like, Jim Rushton, greetings. And and we had the best call, like know how great Rushton is, and just he was so excited and enthusiastic. He had just gotten there. And so we started talking about what he was building, and he said, hey, you got to come down and see it. So I remember I flew down. They put me up at the Viceroy. Remember, they put us up at the Viceroy for the interview, and then they put us in Vacation Village once they got
I showed up and started driving to Miami, and Lynch was like, hey, FYI, you're not staying there. And I'm like, wait, what? Wait, Rushton's staying there. He's like, yeah, you're not Rushton. Come out here to Vacation Village, buddy.
I mean, if anybody could ever understand like what it was like living in that place, like I would like get out with my suit and tie and get in the little elevator that would go 3 floors. There would be like little girls with like floaties and goggles on, like going on their vacation. Old people.
If you're just listening to this, it was a timeshare vacation rental place in Weston, Florida, which was due west of Fort Lauderdale. It was people from the north coming down for their vacation, or retirees who like lived there, and then the three of us who were new Dolphins executives living there.
Oh my God, so funny. Like they did this whole planned community around, like I think Marino, like
Western Florida,
voting it. It was this like big planned community.
Hilarious.
Anyway, long story short, what ended up happening was Jim lowballed me on an offer. I said no. And then I said, look, I want this integrated media role, which they ended up hiring Bob Lynch, the founder of Sponsor United, who my wife now works for as his head of HR for years, as you know. And then several months later, Bob called me and we had an even better conversation than I had with Jim initially. We made it work and I was down, had our discussion, obviously, at the Cherry Tree.
Yeah, well, I had just accepted the job too. So Bob got a job first and he was there, and my offer hadn't come yet and I was getting nervous. And then I accept the job, and within like minutes of accepting the job, like it's all done. It's exciting. I had to take a drug test, which took 2 weeks for the results to come back on a hair test, which was crazy, sweating every day. And then
why?
Because what was funnier is like, I'm like, I had no issues, but I was like, God, what if just some stupid poppy seed or something? I'm like, this is the dream job. Like, this is the opportunity. And then I get the call from Rushton being like, hey, I need you to go grab a beer with this kid, Jason Miller. And you and I met, and the rest is history. But the funniest part is you got to repay the favor for me 4 years later when I was considering leaving to go to the Padres. I walked into your office and I was like, I got this opportunity. And you're like, there's not a question here. You're leaving. Like, get your stuff. You got to go. And I'm like, you got to call my wife. She's not feeling the same way as confident as you are. But you are like, you got to go. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. You got to do it. And I'm obviously glad I did. But yeah, it was amazing. And then, yeah, we got to, I mean, you stayed for a year after I left. So I left at the end of 13 and you stayed through 14, right?
Yeah, I left in June of 15.
Oh, wow.
So I was exactly 5 years that I stayed there. I mean, if you look back at the people that we worked with in that crew, not only on like a personal level and the friends that we met, and how we kind of all grew up together and we just escalated like that going to the Dolphins, just, I don't think there's anything that at least you or I could have done that could have jump started our careers the way that did. And obviously owe a lot to Rushton and Lynchy and D and all those guys.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, Lynch and Rush was the old man. I was the second oldest, which was, I was 32 when I got there. And like the rest of the crew was just young and it was fun and, it was crazy, all the things, but the opportunities, it was like working at a startup. I remember at one point they had to come to us and be like, hey, Pepsi's complaining because you guys are drinking so much Diet Mountain Dew. And it was like, we were just trying to stay alive. Like we were just chugging Diet Mountain Dews all day, trying to keep going because we were working 18-hour days. And it was so fun and amazing people. Well, all right. So transition. So you leave there and you go into, go on the agency side of trying to do, big deals. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So, 5 years in, I've had multiple bosses. I just have my first son, Owen, who's now 10.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just felt like time, and I liked Florida. I still like Florida. It didn't feel like the place that made sense for me to raise my kids.
Yep.
We're getting on a plane every time we want to see anybody we love. So I had two opportunities. I had an opportunity to go to the Ravens and take what was a very similar role to what I had at the Dolphins.
Sure.
I was leading sponsorship and media and activation. I maybe would have got ticket sales at the Ravens, maybe not, working for a good buddy of mine in Kevin Rocklitz. And then I had this other opportunity, which ironically, Jim Rushton, again, recommended me for the role with Premier Partnerships, which was a small boutique firm. Actually, Uzma Ron had just left from MLB.
Oh, wow. I didn't know Uzma was there. That's great.
Yeah. So Uzma was there, and she really cut her teeth in sponsorship at Premier. Yeah. I think she would tell you that. And so I actually talked to Uzma before taking the role, and she had just vacated. And so I went and effectively Premier Partnerships, and it kind of parlays into what I'm doing now, but third-party rights holders, especially some of the younger, less sophisticated, more, I don't want to say the early leagues that it's early times, Major League Soccer clubs that are coming up that don't understand sponsorship, don't understand media, ticket sales. Randy Bernstein, who founded Premier, and Alan Rothenberg, who founded Major League Soccer, they actually came in and they built this company that advised rights holders on how to optimize the sponsorship potential of things like naming rights in front of shirt deals. And so Uzma did the Moda Center naming rights with Showbiz. Anyway, completely different side of the business, but
sure.
I really found myself on the agency side, on the third-party rights holder side. I was at Premier for 3 years, learned a tremendous amount, and then had an opportunity to come to Excel Sports Management, where I've been for the last 6 years, and build out a third-party property representation business within a great brand that already represents biggest NBA agency in the world, Jeff Schwartz, who founded our company. One or two in baseball or golf on any given day. Casey Close, our baseball agent, Jeter's agent, about 170 major and minor league baseball players. We represent Tiger. We have an on-field football business. We've expanded our brand marketing. So really, really awesome opportunity for me to come in and build this business. Started with 2 people. We've now got 20 people. Just hired my person over internationally. And we really cut our teeth in the on-uniform branding space. So when I got to Excel, my boss, Emilio Collins, had just left the NBA. He's the one who hired me. He architected the NBA jersey patch program, which was the first league in North America other than Major League Soccer to allow on-uniform branding.
Yep.
So he comes to Excel. He's got team owners, chief revenue officers, presidents. How do I sell this? How do I package it? How do I price it? Brought me in. I built the division. Since then, we've done 3 MLB jersey patches, 8 NBA jersey patches. We did the Rapid 7 deal for the Bruins on the NHL side.
Yep.
Just advised my old buddy Dave Baldwin at the Fire. We did their front of shirt deal. did some work for the NWSL team, Gotham FC. So a lot of on-uniform branding. We've done the last 3 MLS stadium naming rights deals out in LA, down in Nashville, and down in Austin. So just, when a team needs, a firing squad of salespeople that are going to get it done, we've never failed on any project we've taken on. So
love it.
Fun, man.
It's amazing, dude. I'm so proud of you. What a ride, from, $4,000 sign at a football and basketball stadium to, the one I saw most recently was the Celtics jersey naming rights, which I know you're a huge Boston sports fan. And that, I know that one probably hit home a little bit harder than others.
Yeah, it was the second time we worked with the Celtics, and Rich Gotham and Ted Dalton. Those guys are just some of the best people in the industry, best at what they do. They hired us when GE decided it wasn't for them. We did the original Vistaprint deal, and then they hired us this time around to help them oversee the process, which resulted in Amica, which they worked on internally. So, yeah, it's been fun, man. I took on the Boston Bruins patch shirts, did that. Yeah. Now I'm actually working with the new NWSL club up in Boston that drops the ball in 2026 on their stadium naming rights and furniture. So anytime I can get up and do something in Boston, I'm doing it.
Yeah, it's pretty special. The Celtics front office too. I mean, we had the Celtics rights when I was at EEI, and those guys were, in their first couple years with the team. To think it's been 20 plus years, that front office continues to innovate. It's awesome. I quote Rich Gotham all the time because it was the first time I had heard a team executive talk about marketing in the way in which he did, which was in 06, 07, talking about we're not going to win championships to sell tickets. We're going to sell tickets to win championships, right? Put the business before the on court or on field product, get the business right. And then when the moment of the peaks happen, you're in the best position to strive and grow your business, and really helped me kind of frame it up when we got to Miami and then San Diego, to really put a blueprint to foundational marketing and brand success that allows you to capitalize on the revenue side when your team does have those spikes. And they did it right. I mean, they didn't even have on-court entertainment prior to like 07 and 06, 07. And so reimagining the entire brand, this historic traditional brand. And when we come across historic and traditional brands and they tell me they can't change, and I'm like, I want to bring you up to Boston because the Boston Celtics are one of the most historic traditional brands in sports. And today, there's guys flying on trampolines and all sorts of chaos to get people who may not be the biggest NBA fans, but they're loving going to those games and being entertained by that crew. So that's awesome. I saw that one hit home for me too, dude. So that's amazing. So the whole concept of this podcast is a lesson from sports. You've worked in sports now for probably 20 years at this point, you old man. So almost to your 42nd birthday. So you're probably at 19 years in sports. So is there something that, a lesson for you that you take away from all the interactions with sports that's helped you, in the business world?
No, I mean, I'm still really, really surprised with the way that sports can impact people, both when they need a pick-me-up, and then also when you're trying to, entertain customers, you're trying to sell somebody something. We're so jaded. I mean, God, if I never go to another sporting event again, it wasn't really until Owen and Jameson started getting a little older and thinking, wow, this is cool. This is cool walking out of the tunnel. I mean, for me, it's nothing. For you, it's nothing. But you probably see it with Emily and Julia and, their faces when they're doing things that are meaningful to them. It might not be sports. Maybe it's a concert that you take them to or something that you get access to. I think, I can't pinpoint anything that I would specifically tie to sports. But I'm a little stuck here.
We'll edit it out. It's fine.
Okay, good. Thanks. Something that I've learned in sports.
Yeah, from sports, around sports, something, from the game that you use in your daily life or in your, business world that you have taken from sports. There's so many.
Yeah. One thing that I think I always think about, and it really, applies to my business is just the concept of great people and great teams. You look on the field and you can see this talented group of individuals that are out there, and they go 0-16 or they go 1-15. you make one head coaching hire, or you remove one piece from that puzzle or add one piece to that puzzle, and all of a sudden they're making a run for the Super Bowl. And so it's so much about the people, and the teamwork that comes with it. And I just look at our group, and all the different pieces that we had. I think when we got to the Dolphins, they didn't win any more games. In fact, I think the year that we got to the Dolphins, they had won the division the year before in 2009 under Tony Sparano. And then in my 5 years, we went 7-9, 6-10, 8-8, 6-10, 7-9. We never had a winning record, right? But we grew our sponsorship business to top 15 in the league when we were in the high 20s. And that was just by putting a couple people in the mix. And with what I do today, there is so much teamwork that is required. It's not just about opening up the door and getting the initial meeting. We have an incredible marketing solutions team. We have an insights team. We have an analytics team. So I think it's just, teamwork does make the dream work. It's such a cliche thing to say. But there is the analogy of sports when you think about business, and just making sure that you have the right people, and then also put the right people in the right position to win. I've had employees over the past several years that have been miscast. And they've just been put in the wrong position. I put them in another position and they're flourishing, or I put them under a different leader and they're flourishing. So just the concept of teamwork and people is something that just
I love that. Yeah, I love that, because we now for us, we're consulting, right? So we're getting dropped into businesses, whether they're teams, leagues, or on our enterprise side of our business, we're getting dropped in, and I see the miscasting of employees more than I see any. You see great people with care and passion and love for the business that they're in, but they're failing, and they're not failing for lack of effort. They're failing for other reasons. A lot of times we see people, especially on the sports side, we see people that they just start getting things layered onto their job year after year because they've been there for a long time. And when I was in radio, I was there for 9 years. I had things just kept getting layered onto me because I could get stuff done. So they would layer. And sometimes just by peeling back some of those layers and removing some of those duties from somebody and allowing them to shine and actually have time to care about a project and give it all they have. And then all of a sudden their careers change. That for me is everything. And you're right. By a little bit of a change, a new person entering the mix. And, I love you never had a winning season. The only winning season I had in my 10 years on the team side was 2020 during COVID. The Padres went to the playoffs where we couldn't sell a ticket or a sponsorship. So other than that, the year in which we could not sell, we did not have a winning season. And yet revenues continued to go up. Ticket sales went up, right? Attendance went up. Sponsorship went up like exponentially over those years. And every time I walk into the room with a team, and I'm sure you deal with this walking into teams, like, well, if the team could just play better, we could sell more. And it makes my head want to explode, because then why are we here? Like, just go hire more people on the team side, because you don't need great marketers to come in and help drive the revenue. And I think what you guys do is really powerful, of coming in and adding that extra muscle. They don't need that all the time, but there's a major project that's on the horizon where they still have to run their day-to-day business, but this other project could derail all that effort and forget about the other sponsorship assets you have to sell, and bring you guys into level above that to be that team that could just focus on this thing that is so important to the financial wherewithal of that business.
Yeah, I mean, look, the most, some of the smartest people in the world hire consultants when they have really big decisions that they need to make. And sometimes it's around a big asset, and others, you've just got an organization that's underperforming. I talked to an owner this morning of a team that is severely underperforming in a major market, and they need help. And it's not just around a major asset. It's about, do we have the right staffing structure in place? Do we have the right strategy? Are we packaging right? Are we pricing right? Are we driving the right levels of scarcity? So again, that's an instance where it's all about having the right team and the right people, not just on the field, but off the field on the business side. And so again, people ask, like, what differentiates Excel? It's our people. It really is. We hire really good people that care. And I think that's step one. And I think you look at that, it equates to the business side. Everything that happens on the field or on the court happens on the business side. It's
100%.
So easy to see.
100%. Yeah. And I agree with that. The consulting side for us, I think it's funny that you and I, it was 14 years ago, we were dropping into the NFL as, new executives there. And now 14 years later, we're dropping into all these businesses across the country and world to help, kind of change the way they do things based on the, experiences that we had in on the team side. So I love it, man. I'm proud of you. But one of the things that we did learn on the team side is that if the numbers are not there, the wins are not there, or you're not hitting your goal, you get put on the hot seat. And now I get to put you on the hot seat, Mr. Miller. Rapid fire questions. We'll have some fun with it. You can elaborate if you feel like it. I may poke and prod and have some fun along the way as well.
Awesome.
First question, favorite team to cheer for?
No question about it, the New England Patriots. Always will be. I just got absolutely lambasted day one at the Dolphins when I pulled in with my Patriots Charity Foundation license plate. But I could never give the Patriots up. It was just too many incredible memories going to games with my grandfather.
He used to embarrass the hell out of me pulling up with that license plate. We were just, I think there was 9 of us from Boston that went down there, and it was like, gosh, Miller, just take the license plate off. What are you doing? I'm the other way, right? Like I can't cheer for them. I don't cheer for them at all. I would cheer for Tom Brady. Had a couple good interactions with him, and I thought he was amazing to watch. And anytime you get to watch the greatest of anything perform, I just want to enjoy every second of it. But yeah, I haven't cheered for that team, but I cheer, I'm a mercenary, man. So I cheer for my partners. So if you're paying me, I'm all in on you, baby. Let's go.
You root for the LRC, right? The lower right-hand corner of your page. How about the LRC?
But you were loyal, man. I give it to you. You were a fan first. And now I can sit back and enjoy that for you. Now that you're not embarrassing me as you pull in the parking lot. Best sports memory.
I've got a couple. One, I took my dad to the Super Bowl in 2007 when they lost.
That's cool.
In the 19-1 season. It was cool until they lost.
Sure.
I then took my mom to the second Giant Super Bowl. So I'm like, all right, I'm not bringing my parents to the Super Bowl anymore. The third Super Bowl I went to, I brought my wife. I brought Margot. And it was the Malcolm Butler interception. I was on the 50-yard line. It was just such an emotional moment to finally see my team win it in person.
Yeah.
But actually, I think my best sports memory now is I took my son Owen to the NBA Finals. It was Game 6 against the Warriors. They lost, but it was just one of those cool moments where I really got to flex. And we're sitting there. I think I told you about this at MLB.
You did. That's why it's a question. I love this story.
It's so special. I mean, we're just sitting there. We're watching Game 5, and the Celtics lose, and so they go to Game 6, and my son's like, man, can you imagine what it would be like to go to the NBA Finals and see this Game 6 in Boston? I said, well, do you want to go? And he's kind of looked at me like, is that possible? He's 7 years old. I was like,
of course.
Go pack your bag. And I texted my good buddy Glenn Thornborough, as the president of the Garden and the Bruins, and he took care of us. And I used, booked a flight, and I just remember after losing that game, it's midnight. I got my little guy, and we're just walking across the Boston Common. It's dark out, beautiful night. You got the Capitol building, just a special, special memory. I'll just never forget it.
Yeah, that's the thing. There aren't many of those moments, like for all the work we do and on the hours we put in, just creating those magical moments is what it's all about. And, I remember I got to go to one baseball game a year when I was a kid, and now it's like what I do for a living. And, my kids, it's like, they don't even want to go anymore. It's just like, no, Dad, we've been to enough baseball games with you, like I'm a different person when I'm there. So it's good. But all right. So that's on the personal side. This one I think is a little bit different. What's your favorite sports event to go for business? Like, where do you feel like you get the most work done?
I went this year to Cannes.
Okay.
And I would not say that it is necessarily a sports event, but sports has taken over Cannes. The Cannes Lions Festival, it is this amazing opportunity to get marketing decision makers in an environment where they're relaxed and they're having fun and they're drinking rosé and they're amongst their colleagues. And, for me, I go to these conferences and I go to these events, and the people that I'm trying to talk to, like, they're running the gauntlet after they get off the stage or they get out of their meeting to get away from people trying to sell them stuff. Whereas in Cannes, people are like, all right, I'm halfway across the world. I'm in France. Anybody that's here has to be somewhat senior if their company's going to actually send them to France. Yeah. And so they're willing to meet and they're willing to engage. And I went over there this year, and I just got to tell you, I built some of the best relationships that I've built in a long time,
Good.
spending time over there. So I think that Cannes is an absolute must. And then look, I love MLB All-Star. You and I both love MLB
My
All-Star.
favorite. I love it.
Yeah, I think part of it is just the incredible hosting that the MLB team does, their generosity,
No doubt.
their willingness to kind of welcome people with open arms. They're not territorial about being around their partners. They're confident. And I love that group. So I love going to MLB All-Star and experiencing that weekend and going to different cities and connecting with old friends like you. So those are two that come to mind.
Yeah, those are good. And so Cannes is on my list for next year. Katie and I have that circled as we've been starting to sort of kind of plan around that so that we can be there. But yeah, MLB All-Star is a fun one. And I love that you started coming to that because I get to spend time with you, which is great. Even if you forget to invite me to your party this year, which is fine. No big deal. I'm not hurt at all, but it's okay. It's all right.
Never gonna live that one down.
No, never, ever.
Nor should I.
You talked about a few of your jobs. What's the worst job you've ever had?
Oh, it's without actually there's two that were absolutely horrible. Ironically, one of them I met my wife.
Okay.
I worked at a nun retirement home washing dishes.
Stop.
It was an 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. shift, 2 days a week on Saturdays and Sundays. I was a junior in high school. I
Wow.
met Margot. She was actually a server at that place. And so I was only there for 6 weeks and we interacted a couple times. And then I bumped into her randomly in Boston 10 years later.
Stop it.
That was a pretty bad job. They paid me really well. The other one I worked for like 3 hours. I went to Jimmy John's hot dogs and they were having me make milkshakes and grill on the grill. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. So I walked out. Luckily, none of my professional jobs are on that list. More of the jobs before the jobs.
Yeah, I love that. This was a little bit more fun. Favorite place to vacation?
I love traveling overseas, but you can't beat Hawaii. I mean, for you, being out in San Diego or LA and those West Coasters, maybe it's not as novel to you, but to us people on the East Coast, when you go to Hawaii, the vibe, the people, the fish, if you like fish, it's just, I love Hawaii. I just think it's such a special place.
That's great. Of all the deals you've done, what was the one that surprised you the most that you couldn't believe you pulled it off? Because you pulled some rabbits out of your hats in your career.
Yeah, we were working on the Timberwolves jersey patch.
Okay.
Look, this is right before A-Rod bought the team. They had just drafted Anthony Edwards. The team was just not doing well. We were coming out of COVID. Their team is amazing. Ryan Tanke and David King, and Ethan. I love those guys, and we're banging our head against the wall, having great conversations, and then all of a sudden, I got a call from an old buddy that worked at a new company, Aura, and we literally talked for 3 hours on my train ride from New York to Pennsylvania. That continued from him, my friend picking me up. I did another hour on the first three holes of the golf course, and by the fourth hole, I was calling David King to say, hey, if you can include courtside seats in this deal, the deal is done.
Wow.
And so it's so funny. You work so hard to develop these prospect lists. And what did it come down to? It came down to relationships. It came down to a good buddy of mine that trusted me. The Timberwolves opportunity was an incredible opportunity. We just weren't able to get to the right people at the right time. And that thing came together in 3 hours. So
I love that.
That was a fun one to throw up on the board.
Yeah, and those relationships come down to trust too, right? Like that deal doesn't happen in 3 hours without the 15 years of friendship and late nights or conversations. And the things that people always forget is it does mean pausing what was going to happen in your life in that moment, right? You're supposed to be with a buddy, you're supposed to be golfing, but it's like, nope, this happens right now. And if I can actually make this happen, this is what I have to get done. And I think we all kind of have to find that balance because through relationships, you're able to build amazing partnerships that do help people's businesses thrive. So it's great.
Yeah.
Love
That's
it.
What it all comes down to.
No doubt. Okay. Best mentor you've had in your career.
Whew, man. I guess I got to say Rushton.
Yeah.
Right. He's just a special guy. Do I agree with everything Rushton thinks and says? Absolutely not. You don't. Nobody that's worked for him does. But I think just learned a lot about never getting too high and never getting too low. As you know, I can get pretty heated.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost, I think, the angry Miller moniker that
Okay. All right.
you actually dubbed me Angry Miller as my I think. But look, I came into that job as a really young professional, and I think I
Yeah.
left as an executive, and I owe
Yeah.
a tremendous amount of that to Jim and a lot of the things that he taught me. So Jim was I've had a lot of great mentors throughout the year, whether it be Emilio now, who I'm working with,
Yep.
Mark Winship, my first boss, but Randy at Premier taught me a
Yeah.
tremendous amount. But Jim just has a special place in my heart because of not only bringing me to the Dolphins, but then helping me get my career going at Premier, and then actually hiring me when he was at Premier. I mean, he's just so supportive of us, and he's just such a special guy, and I just
Yeah.
owe him a lot.
He was the first person I had on the podcast. I felt it was an appropriate place to start. And, the guy born of, parents both being teachers. He's just the professor, never stops teaching. We're on a text thread with Jim where he still sends us books to read and quotes. And, I think there's 13 of us that just make fun of him the whole time, but he never quits. And it's pretty amazing. What's your go-to drink?
My go-to drink from an alcoholic perspective, I love a nice ice cold beer.
Okay.
I'm a beer guy.
You're a simple guy.
I'm just a beer guy. I've been getting into mezcal actually.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, a little smoky.
I think a spicy mezcal margarita would be, if I went to I saw a really good bartender shaking it up. Like, I don't want these crap wedding cocktails where they're just vodka and Sprite. Like, I want a real professional mixologist cocktail. Otherwise, I'd rather have a beer or a glass of wine. I just think mixed drinks are so inconsistent, but spicy mezcal margarita.
Love it. Love it. Name of your fantasy football team.
Oh man, my quarterback is Lamar Jackson, who's been awesome. I've got Bijan Robinson, Aaron Jones. My receivers are great. I've got Neighbor. My team's actually really good.
What's the name?
Oh, what's the name of it?
Yeah.
Oh, you'll like this. Vince McMiller. And the reason is because I'm the commissioner of the league.
Okay.
So, and a little play on Vince McMillan, and I have this image on as my team logo of Vince McMahon just like screaming and being a psycho. So Vince McMiller is my fantasy team with my WVU buddies I've been in a league with for 20 years.
Love it. Last one on the hot seat, Dunkin' or Starbucks?
Starbucks. And as a Boston guy, that's bad.
Yeah, but what's your order? My
order is a venti cold brew with the vanilla, when I'm not trying to eat healthy because it's just not good for you, with the vanilla sweet cream. If you haven't had that, and a couple pumps of sugar-free vanilla. Oh my God. Get the vanilla sweet cream. It's
I'm a cold brew guy myself, but never with the sweet cream. I love it. All right.
Get the sweet cream. It's delicious.
Perfect. All right. The hot seat is over. You survived. Congratulations. Now we go to the final kind of chapter here, which is providing value. As you know, that's like my thing. I love you brought up Rushton. There's many others who, have just been amazing to, I know me, but also you, and I've helped. You mentioned a bunch of your mentors of just providing value. And I know you do that for your staff and everybody you encounter. Like, what advice would you give somebody who said, hey, I want to do what you do. I want to get in the sponsorship, world, and I want to be a seller and I want to go after what advice would you give that kid?
Look, I think just a couple of overall things that I'm seeing right now with young people that I think are debilitating, and they're debilitating to young people. They're debilitating to people that are our age. If you don't heed the advice, which is stay off text and email, right? Especially don't do conflict over email. But I cannot tell you how many times I've had disagreements, issues over the past several months and years amongst staff members, amongst team members, with my wife. I heed this advice at work, and I don't do conflict over email and text, but then I get into fights with my wife over text, right? So, I just think it's so important. Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
You're texting back and forth, you're emailing back and forth. If you think somebody's misunderstanding you, they probably are. You can't understand inflection. You can't understand intentions. And at the end of the day, it's all about intentions, right? And managing expectations. And I just think it's really hard to do over email. So not only don't do conflict, but I would just try to stay off text and email. Look, everything doesn't have to be a call, but pick up the phone is a big one. And then in terms of like getting into sales, sales is hard, right? I don't care if you are doing inside sales for an NBA basketball team,
Mhm.
or you're selling what I believe is the highest level of sales, which is what myself and my team do, going out and working on 8-figure and 9-figure deals for some of the biggest properties in the world. Sales is hard, and you just got to come in and you got to start with the basics. I have coordinators that come in; they don't want to do prospecting; they want to just get on the phone. Well, if you don't know how to prospect, then you can't find the right companies, and if you can't find the right companies, you can't figure out who the right people are to call. And all of these disciplines have to be learned kind of sequentially.
Yeah.
Because you can't just jump in there. Look, you might identify the best company to buy some asset, but if you don't know who you should be calling about that asset, and then you don't know what that note should say, and then you don't know how to handle that initial call, like you're never going to get there. So I just think in sales you have to really learn the basics.
Yeah.
And it's just like learning any sport. And again, back to the sports analogy, right? It's, I tell my son Owen, like, you're not going to just like roll out of bed, being on your iPad all day and then go, hit two doubles and be able to play the field on the baseball diamond. Like, you got to be out there in the batting cages. You got to be out there throwing, playing catch. On the basketball side, you got to throw up 100 shots a day. Like, it's the same thing in sales. You need reps. And so I think, actually, one of the people at the Dolphins that I worked with gave me this incredible analogy about people that are just trying to get there quicker, right? They don't want to go through all the bullshit that we had to go through to
Hmm.
get to where we are, right? And he said to me, look, if you're in the military, it doesn't matter if you are a colonel, you're a sergeant, you're a commander, you're a general. I don't even know if those titles are right, but it doesn't matter. Basically, it doesn't matter what level you are. If you get dropped out of a helicopter in Vietnam, you better be able to shoot your gun or you're dead.
Hmm.
And so many people these days just want to be dropped into these big roles without learning the basics, without learning how to shoot their gun, without learning how to tie their shoes. And it can be really debilitating to them long term, because you get these opportunities, you fail, you may never get them again.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I joke all the time, since leaving corporate and becoming an entrepreneur, is that everybody loves to write entrepreneur in their Instagram bio because it feels good. But it's a big difference between writing it in your Instagram bio and risking your entire mortgage to go make it a reality, and your family's livelihood and all the things. Like, that's a very different job. And it just writing it doesn't mean you're ready for it. And I've dreamt of doing this for a long time, but I wasn't ready for it. I did have to go through all those paces. You can't be a consultant unless you've really learned some things and gone through some things to be able to give that advice. And same for you, like on the sales side, you think back to, cold calling all those biotech companies. Next thing you're ready when you get to the Dolphins to start making some of those calls. And I tell everybody all the time whenever I introduce you that you opened more doors than any salesperson I've ever worked with. You just had a gift to be able to get through all of the things because you knew how to navigate those conversations to get to the decision maker to make deals happen faster. And like, it's why you are where you are today, is because you did go through all those. Listen, if you can sell radio and you can grind it out and have success selling radio, it preps you for so much success in this world. I firmly believe that, because it is all imagination. It is theater of the mind. And if you can convince somebody of it, imagine what would happen if you had real tangible assets to sell. Like,
I
wow.
know. I mean, you've told me you're proud of me multiple times on this call. I feel the same about you. I mean, one thing that you just left out of your story is there's a lot of people that become entrepreneurs, but they're not walking away from something, right?
Mhm.
You were walking towards something, and yes, you made the risk of going and making that your new job. But you also walked away, at the height of your career from a team perspective, right? You were the chief marketing officer of a Major League Baseball team in a
Sure.
major market and had many other opportunities to do that. So you should be, and I know that all the relationships that you've built over time are the ones that are kind of keeping you going, and the
Yeah,
ones that are
for sure.
feeding your business. And that's probably my other piece of advice is just, relationships matter, man.
Phew.
And just treating everybody well, and you don't have to like everybody, but respecting people. I mean, I just literally just talked to a former colleague of mine that is now the commissioner of a major league, right? and
Crazy.
and we were friends, but we were also, competing against each other. So I could have taken that opportunity to not be nice and not build a relationship. But I've just tried to, throughout my career, build relationships with everybody because, there's a lot of people that say, oh, I'm not talking to a director of marketing. I'm not talking to VP of marketing. I go to the CMO. Okay, well, if you blow off that director of marketing in 3-5 years, that
Yup.
director of marketing is going to be the CMO either there or somewhere else. And
Yup.
so just building relationships, having
No doubt.
respect for everybody is just, I think we did a good job of that at the Dolphins.
Yeah. And taking the time, I think as your careers go on, you get the opportunity to give back. And if you do take that time, I just had this woman walked up to me. I saw this woman I had met years ago and she didn't recognize me at first. I had sunglasses on. It was a golf tournament. I walked up and she goes, "You're the guy. You're the guy. You're Wayne." And I'm like, "I am." And she was like, "I was in a conference 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I waited for you when you got off the stage and you sat and answered my questions. And I told you what I wanted to do." And I'm like, "Yeah." And we connected on Instagram back then. I've been following you. You're doing it. I was just walking up to say, "Congratulations, you're doing it." And she was like, "Dude, how are you standing in front of me right now?" Like, and she's built this amazing business. I was so proud of her. She did it. But like, she remembered, and it was funny. One of my clients happened to be standing right there and he was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "You give people time, man." Like, she was just a kid looking for advice. Now she's an entrepreneur with an incredible business we're talking about doing some things together to partner. She's in a completely different space, but that's what it is all about. And I love that. I'm going to leave you with one last question because I know you got to go. What's the best part of your job?
The best part of my job is without a doubt seeing young people that I've put work into and spent time on succeed. When somebody closes a deal that's never closed a deal before, that you taught how to cold call, you taught how to send an email, that came in with no experience, and then they're closing a major deal, and then they're getting big opportunities that they dream about. I think being a manager is really hard. And there's a lot of challenges and you don't always see the rewards, but it is just so rewarding. And it's such a cheesy thing to say, but I really mean it. Like, I really love watching people that I care about succeed, and I care about the people that I work with. And it's happening more and more. And it's the thing that brings me the most pride about my career up until this point, as I start to see my coaching tree, as I'm sure you're seeing throughout sports as well. It's really gratifying.
It also means that we're getting old, right? Like now we used to laugh at Rushton for his coaching tree, and now there's branches coming off of us. And I think that's amazing. And, I at the All-Star game a couple of years ago, bumped into Josh Goldblatt, who was one of your guys way back in the day when he was, I don't know, what was he, an associate or whatever he was. And all of a sudden I bump into him in an All-Star game and he's doing amazing things at the Yankee. I was proud for you. Like, he was just a guy I worked with who was a young kid at the time and obviously had a great relationship. The same thing. Like, I could have blown off but no, he's a great kid. We had amazing times, but I knew that was a kid that you poured hours into coaching. And, he was, this kid who, and now is like this Paul, he's doing amazing things. It was pretty cool to see him in his element and just owning the room and doing a great job. So
he's grown so much. Lynchy and I hired him as a sales associate, and then I hired him at Premier.
That's right.
That's right. Him up to New York, and now he's working for his childhood team.
Yeah.
That his best friend plays first baseman for. And I again, those are the examples, right? That he met his wife in New York.
Yep.
That's amazing. He got this job with the team he grew up rooting for. And I had something to do with that.
Yeah.
And I love the guy. And he's one of my best friends in the world. So
he's an amazing guy. And I saw him. He's the guy who walks in the room and you instantly light up. You're like, this is amazing. And so I just wanted to shout that out as well. Like, to your point, like the people, and it is, people say, it's a boilerplate answer, but it's not when you actually get to see the fruits of that labor. And when the fruits are humans and they're doing great things and you had a part of that, it's amazing. Dude, thank you so much for taking the time and, joining us, and obviously for the years of friendship. I love you, dude. Yeah, I'm proud of you. Congrats. And, thank you for sharing all this with our audience. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Wayne. Appreciate you having me, man. Love you too, buddy.